Like it or not, the current format is full of Terra Pokemon and different mechanics that revolve around them. For example, Reklev just took the Shimmery Turtle and its friends to a regional tournament finals. Whether you want to use this yourself or you need to know how to beat it, it's good to know how it works, because this deck might be around for a while. So welcome back to another Pokemon TCG gameplay video. Today we're looking into Terapagos EX, or as I so affectionately call it, the Shimmery Tortuga. Now I started looking deeper into this deck after watching Reklev use it in the regional final recently, as I mentioned, but we're changing the deck list a little bit after some practice rounds. So the main attack you're going to be using in this deck is of course Terapagos' Unified Beatdown, does 30 damage for each Pokemon on your bench, and you're going to be using the Area 0 Underdepths to get more people on your bench. So here is that card. It helps you get up to 8 Pokemon on your bench, meaning you can do up to 240 damage or 220 since we're going to be using a double turbo energy. So the way you'll want to start out some of these games is by using Fan Rotom to pull out 3 Pokemon of 100 HP or less, 3 colorless Pokemon. Of course, you want to get some Hoothoot and a Pidgey down, and that will help you get to a Noctowl on your turn 2 so that you can look up 2 cards. And Noctowl's ability is crazy, as everyone is talking about these days. So you get to pick out 2 trainer cards, which could be an item, it could be a supporter, it could be a ton of different things. So Noctowl is huge, and if you can use several of those in a game, you'll be sitting pretty. Now sometimes 220 damage with Terapagos isn't enough, so we'll need a Dusknoir to help with that, and this also helps manipulate the prize trade, so we can go over and use our Bloodmoon Ursaluna. So if you have 1 prize card remaining, or if your opponent has 1 prize card remaining, you can bring in your Ursaluna EX to do 240 damage. So a little bit more than that 220, and sometimes that little bit extra is all you need to close out a game. So we'll hop over to the full deck list to talk about some of the counts that we included. So here is the full deck list. Now I went a little heavier on Hoothoot, Noctowl, Dusknoir, and Dusknoir that you might see in some other decks. I didn't include Bouffalant because I didn't find myself using it as much. I was clogging up my bench too often, so I didn't go with those ones. But of course we have 3 Terapagos, 2 Fan Rotom are very important, just 1 Pidgey and Pidgeot because I learned that I could live without them. Of course it's nice to have Pidgeot's ability to be able to look up anything you want, but it wasn't the end of the world in the games that I wasn't able to find it, so I just went with 1 and 1 there. And of course we have our closer with Ursaluna EX here to be able to attack without needing any energy at the end of the game. For supporters, we went with 3 Iono and 2 Professor's Research. I feel like you could mess with that a little bit and see how you want to change it up. Colress's Tenacity is really helpful because you can get both a Stadium card and an energy, so there are some cases where you'll need both of those things. Briar is great because as you're manipulating the prize trade, if you can get your opponent down to just 2 cards, you're able to take a knockout and take an extra prize card there, seeing that Terapagos is a Terra Pokemon, so it's really helpful in this deck. We added 4 Ultra Balls, 4 Buddy-Buddy Poffins, 4 Rare Candies, and then 3 Night Stretchers, a few Nest Balls, Counter Catchers. I could see 1 Counter Catcher. I don't see myself using this as often because you pretty quickly get into your Dusknoir knockouts, so you're not always playing from behind, you go pretty quickly. So I could see knocking this down for probably like a Lost Vacuum or something. I found myself needing a Lost Vacuum more often, so I'd probably switch out 1 more of those, but also a Switch, a Prime Catcher as your main ace spec, a Feather Ball so you can find your Pidgeot pretty easily, and then 4 of the Stadiums and 4 of Double Turbo Energy. So we'll go over and show you the ideal starting hand or something pretty close to it and talk through how you want to start out the game. So in your first hand, you'll want to start out with a single prizer if possible. We'll have Duskull here, which is perfect, so we can pop it and get it out of the way, but you're going to want to have a Fan Rotom as well because that's the engine to kind of start off putting things on your bench. So we're going to check here to make sure that we have a Pidgeot in the deck to know if we should put down Pidgey or just leave it off for now, which we do. We have a Pidgeot that we can see. So we'll go ahead and choose a couple Hoothoot as well as that Pidgeot. So just making sure nothing else is in my hand. 2 Hoothoot and a Pidgeot. So if you get all 3 of these down, you'll also want to get a Terapagos so that you can use your Hoothoot and your Noctowl on the next turn. So we'll toss a couple cards here and make sure we can get to our Terapagos. Now ideally we would also have an energy in this hand. That would be the perfect setup for it. So you can see here we have Duskull that we can get out of the way. If we were to play a Raging Bolt or something like that, we're not giving up a 2 prizer to start. We can get back to a Duskull in the future if we need to, but we have a couple Hoothoot set up. We have our Pidgey set up so that we can get to that on the next turn. So we can disregard the Strange Hero's Cape Mimikyu on the other side. We deal with that eventually, and we're not going to go through this entire game, but on turn 2 we have our Noctowl set up, and that's going to help us get to a Feather Ball and a Rare Candy. So here we go, putting the Noctowl down. We'll go ahead and grab those 2 things, and then once you're set up with that, you can get yourself another Noctowl if you want to. You can get your Colress's Tenacity which I already had a Rare Candy in my hand, so I went with that to begin with, and that way I can get the energy I need for my Terapagos, and I can get my Area 0 Underdepths to be able to expand my bench a little bit, maybe even use Pidgeot to grab some more Pokemon to put on the bench. And then from there, you're pretty good to continue with the game, start knocking things out with Dusknoir, start using your attack with Terapagos, and really just go crazy. And now we're going to skip to the end of the game to see some of the Bloodmoon Ursaluna antics. So most of the middle of this game was just me trying to get around Mimikyu. The person I was playing against kept bringing it back, but you can see here my opponent has 2 prize cards remaining, which means I would have to use an energy card to use Bloodmoon Ursaluna. But instead, we're going to go ahead and pop a Dusknoir, and it's going to do 2 things. It's going to give me enough damage to put on Charizard, and it's going to make sure there's only 1 prize card remaining, so I don't need to use any energy. So if I had tried to pop that Dusknoir here, and I couldn't get another Pokemon to put down on the bench, I'd only be doing, I believe, 190 damage with Terapagos, which would be 10 short in this game. So Bloodmoon Ursaluna was huge to make sure I had enough damage to be able to close this game out, and that happens very often using this deck. So now that we've seen the beginning and the ending of this type of matchup, we're going to try a game, and I have pre-recorded this, so I'm just going to be speaking over it so that I could think while I was playing and talk now. But we start out with our ideal Duskull in the active slot, and we're going to go ahead and get ourselves a Fan Rotom. So we're going to check real quick to make sure we have Pidgeot, which we do. We have both Pidgey and Pidgeot. We didn't prize either one of them, so we'll make sure to grab one of those with our Fan Rotom. Put that down. And then in this case, there's not a lot going on in my hand. So I could go with 2 Hoothoot, but for my next turn, if I can get a Terapagos down, I'll be able to use a Noctowl. So seeing that again, there's not much going on in my hand, I'm gonna take a Noctowl just so I have 1 extra card. Again, I can't use that if I don't get a Terapagos on my next turn, but if I do, then I'll be able to use Noctowl and search up a couple cards. So we're just gonna pass for now. I would have loved to have a Terapagos and put that double turbo energy on it, of course, but sometimes that's just not how it works. It looks like we're playing against a Dragapult deck with a Duskull and a Dusknoir, maybe a Dusclops in there as well. So, you know, I love this deck if you've seen my previous video on it. I recently played the version of it that doesn't have Dusknoir, but we'll see what our opponent can get to on their first turn. I wouldn't think they would go too crazy with this stuff, because if I'm able to Iono or something, I could just get rid of anything in their hands. So I wouldn't imagine they use this Forest Seal Stone, which they do, so never mind. I thought they might just draw their 3 cards there with their turbocharge or whatever it's called, but nope, they're not going to do that. So they did pull something that they want into their hand. If we get an Iono, maybe we can use that against them. When they're going to Ultra Ball here, so I'm going to toss a Drag Cloak. I would have thought they want to use that on their next turn, but they're going to get a Dusknoir, which they can't evolve to. And there it is, the instant charge. So weird to put a bunch of stuff in their hand and just trust that I don't have an Iono. Luckily for them, I don't, but we do get an Ultra Ball. So that will help us get to our Terapagos. Unfortunately, we're going to have to get rid of 2 things, so Night Stretcher and DTE. I might have been able to get rid of the Area 0 there because I don't think I'm going to want that soon. There's no real reason to use it at the moment, but we have a couple copies of all of these things, so I feel like we'll be fine either way. And now that we have Terapagos down, we can use our Jewel Seeker. So this is going to be able to get our Pidgeot up and running. So we'll get our Feather Ball as well as a Rare Candy. And again, we know Pidgeot's in the deck because we prize checked. Make sure you prize check because that's a waste of a Jewel Seeker if you don't have them in your deck, which I have done before. All right, and from here, I may end up using the Area 0 just to get some more things down. Like if they knock out my Duskull, I can get another one here. So I might get a Buddy-Buddy Poffin to be able to add a couple more Pokemon to the bench. All right, so we'll put down our stadium, make the bench a little bit bigger. Their bench will get bigger once they put Dragapult in play, but we'll get another Hoothoot, so we can use Jewel Seeker once again, and Duskull. So if the stadium gets knocked here, we'll have to get rid of a few Pokemon, and some good things to get rid of are your Noctowl, so you can Night Stretcher them back and use them again, or your Fan Rotom, because once you use it on turn 1, you're most of the time not going to be really using it any longer. Okay, so they'll get to their Dragapult. We know they have a Dusknoir in their hand as well, but they're just gonna go for a Dusclops for now and not use another Rare Candy. So now that they've attached, they need their Sparkling Crystal to be able to attack, and they would be able to take out both of my Duskull, which would be really annoying. So hopefully they don't do that, but there's a good chance they have a way to get to Sparkling Crystal, and they don't. They just Jet Headbutt and take out one Duskull, which is honestly not bad. If I can fill my bench up here and then get to a Dusknoir, which I have an empty bench, so that could be tough. So yeah, we'll definitely use this Dusknoir and see if it's able to get us anything at all. We also have our Pidgeot that we can use. So we're gonna go with, what do we do here? Do we get Dusknoir evolved? I think so. So we know that we tossed one into the trash at the beginning of the game, so we can use Night Stretcher to get that back, and then Rare Candy up our Dusknoir. So a couple options here. Since we're only doing 130 damage at the moment, adding the 130 from Dusknoir is 260 on the active. So we could take out the Dusclops, we could take out the Dreepy, but I think I'm just gonna hang out for a second. So they can't Phantom Dive my Dusclops or my Duskull because it's not 60 HP anymore. So it's gonna cost them something else to do that. They could attack, they could like boss up my Dusknoir and knock it out, or they could use their own Dusknoir, as they're looking like they might do here. So we could trade, you know, one prize for one prize and get rid of the Dusknoirs, just so I can't use that to knock out their Dragapult. So that wouldn't be the worst play from them. Or they could knock out my Terapagos if they wanted to use their Dusknoir to do 130, and then their Dragapult could attack my active and put 60 damage onto the bench. So there's a couple different things that they could do here. A rescue board on a Dragapult is interesting, but I guess in case they want to retreat that in the future, they can. And they're going to go for the Dusknoir on the bench. So this way, okay, I'll take my prize card, and then they'll attack the active, and then take out the Dusknoir with the extra, probably 30 damage, and place 30 damage somewhere else. An interesting card that I've seen from some other decks using like Thornton or something in this case. Not a bad idea. I don't have it in this deck, but I could replace that Fan Rotom with a Thornton or with a Duskull from my discard pile. So I see why people do things like that, or it's a good way to get back like a Bloodmoon Ursaluna, but Thornton would be helpful here. Briar doesn't do much for us because I have 4 prize cards. And then Colress also doesn't do much for me, so I do need cards. I need to get cards here. I don't want to throw out a Briar and a Colress, but we're going to get a Professor's Research. I could Iono, but I don't want to give them an extra card, and this will give me, what's it, like draw 6 or 7 instead of just 5 cards. That what I would get. So unfortunately I have to throw out some of those pieces, but we'll get a whole new hand of cards. We'll get a Buddy-Buddy Poffin, which is awesome, and we'll also get a Hoothoot, and we'll get our Prime Catcher. So we have lots of pieces now to be able to manipulate this game. We'll go ahead and get another one of our Duskull, and then a Hoothoot as well, in case we can find another Noctowl. So a couple of those on the board. We can't do much with those in this turn. So we'll have to think of something else to do. And we're doing a little bit more damage now, so I think if we're doing 190, we'll have just enough. So we had the perfect number of Pokemon to be able to take out this Dragapult and make them evolve a new one, and also set up the energy for it. So again, would have been really nice to use our own Dusknoir there, mess with them a little bit more, either take out their Dragapult or something else, but instead we're just gonna have to be content with the active and try and set up another one for the future. So I see we have another Terapagos EX that we got from our prize cards that we're gonna put down, so we have a backup for when this active Terapagos goes down. We're gonna have another one on the bench. Unfortunately, we will have to kick out a couple Pokemon from our bench if they knock it out here, which they probably should, but they don't. They just instant charge because they can't get switched here. So they were able to set up the Dragapult on their bench, but they couldn't switch to get it into the active, which is good for us. We're not going to lose a couple of our Pokemon on the bench from that. Because yeah, if we had lost our Terapagos, we would have lost our Area 0 Underdepths. Well, the stadium would have stayed there, but we wouldn't have been able to use it. So anyways, we have a Prime Catcher here, so we could find the energy from Pidgeot and use our Terapagos that doesn't have any damage on it to get that into the active. We also have a couple of Rare Candy and a Dusknoir, so we'll want to get that going. We could also Pidgeot for a Noctowl and try and put that on one of our Hoothoot to get some more draw there as well. So with this hand, we have plenty of options. And I think we're going to go with the Prime Catcher. I want to be able to do some damage to this Dragapult before it gets the first shot on me. So we'll do that. Now we just need an energy to be able to do an attack here. We get our Dusknoir evolved. And the Pidgeot, the ability isn't doing that little shiny thing around it, so I keep missing that. It must be kind of like a bug or something that it's not showing, but we'll get our energy. And now we're doing a full 220 damage because we have a full bench. If we use the Dusknoir first, that drops down to 190, which I've made that mistake before, seeing that we're doing 220 damage here. And then I use the Dusknoir and think it's just going to stay the same, which of course it doesn't. It drops down to 190. We'll put our damage down, and we're just going to be a pain to them. Again, this will be the perfect amount of damage to get to 320. Unfortunately for them, we're going to drop ourselves down to 1 prize card, which is great because then we can use Ursaluna EX. So we'll set that up for the next turn. I'm also going down to 1 prize card makes sure that they can't use their own Dusknoir because the game would end. So doing this will knock out their active and put them into a pretty tight spot. They're going to have to find out how to get that Dreepy evolved and try and get 3 prize cards. So again, if we didn't have down to 1 prize card, they would probably be able to Dusknoir our Terapagos on the bench. Maybe, I guess there's nothing that's in range for them to boss his orders up. So either way, it's going to be pretty tough for them to come back from this. I see they brought out a Dusknoir. I guess just for fun, they're going to use all of their cards, but there's not really much they can do here. And they'll wave the white flag themselves and take out their own Dusknoir. I guess they don't want to wait for my turn or for me to do it, so they're gonna end this one themselves. But yeah, thanks for joining in for this game. Hopefully it was helpful to go through the setup of this deck. Make sure to check out some more videos if you're enjoying them, and subscribe, leave a like, all that YouTube stuff. And we'll see you in the next video.